Hello everyone. In this video, I will show you how to use the ComfyUI API, Python, WebSockets, and Gradio to build a web application which can generate character portraits. We are going to build 3 different versions. A basic version, which is going to be similar to ChatGPT or the Microsoft image creator. It's going to provide a simple positive prompt, a text box, and it will get back the images. It is simple, but it is a great project for beginners. Then we are going to move on to the intermediate version, where I will show you how to work with input images. The user will be able to upload an image. ComfyUI will use that image as a reference to get the style and composition, and then generate an image accordingly. Finally, we are going to make an advanced version similar to a video game character creation menu, where we are going to have sliders and checkboxes instead of a text box. I will also show you how you can programmatically connect and disconnect node. Let's get started. For the basic version, we can simply go into ComfyUI menu, click on the load default, click on OK, and we'll get the basic workflow, which is included inside of ComfyUI. Now, this is good enough to complete the basic application. However, I'm going to add a load LoRa node, and I'm going to connect it. So the model connect with model, and then the model go into key sample. The clip will go to the positive and negative prompt. For the load checkpoint, I'm going to select Dreamshaper 8. It is an SD 1.5 model. I'm going to select LCM LoRa SD 1.5 for the load LoRa. The LCM LoRa enables image generation in 6 to 10 steps. It is relatively fast. However, it is important to note that LCM LoRa do not use a negative prompt. If you are hosting your application online and it is publicly accessible, you will have to ensure that you are respecting that hosting website terms of service. Now, since we are making a character generation type of application, I think that it's best to go with 512 by 768. The batch size determines how many images will be generated simultaneously. Increasing it to 4 can offer your users more choices. We can do a quick test here, and this is the result. So it's looking all right. But now we need to generate the same image from an application. So first, let's go into the gear icon here, and then make sure that you have enabled dev mode options checked. As for the ComfyUI manager, where it says badge, select the ID nickname option. The gear icon will give you this option, save API format, and then the manager badge nickname will give you these numbers. These are the IDs. We are going to use it to refer to individual nodes. So click on save API format, give it a name. I'm just going to use the basic workflow.json. Make sure it is a .json file. You will need an IDE or a code editor to write the code. I will be using PyCharm. For the main.py, we don't need anything from the default script. So let's remove everything. We will need to install a couple of requirements to get started. So right click on your project name. In my case, it is character generator. Then go into new file. Name this file as requirements.txt. Inside it, type in Gradio, Pillow, NumPy, and then WebSocket-client. Now at this point, if you're using PyCharm, it may ask you to install these requirements. So open the terminal and make sure that your virtual environment is activated. Then type in python-m pip install-r and then the file name, so requirements.txt. Press enter. It will download and install these libraries. Once it's installed, PyCharm is going to index the entire project, and this may take some time. In the meantime, I'm going to provide a file in the description below. It's WebSockets_API. And inside it, there are some utility functions which we'll be using in order to connect to ComfyUI as well as retrieve images from ComfyUI. Now, we'll need to create a settings.py file and then have a server address in there. So let's go into the project file, right click, click on new Python file and name this file as settings.py. Inside the settings.py, simply add server_address equals to, and then the location or the URL to connect to ComfyUI. So when you start ComfyUI in the terminal, you will see somewhere it says to see the GUI, go to, and then you will have a link. Just copy 127 dot anything that is there. Okay, so for me, it's going to look like this. And while we are already on this file, we can add the path to ComfyUI. It's not required right now, but later for the intermediate and the advanced version, we will need it. So simply add comfy_UI_path and then the path to your ComfyUI installation. Now make sure you're not linking to this path where you have the run NVIDIA_GPU. Instead, go inside the ComfyUI folder here. In this folder, you will see the input models output folder. This is the path that you need. If you're using Windows, you can click at the top and copy it, or you can go back, right click on the folder, and then select copy as path. Now, since this is Python and the backslash is an escape character, you can replace all the backslash with a / like this, or you can use double backslash to escape it. So once you have the file, save it. Now, just to touch a little bit on the WebSocket API, we have a function to queue the prompt, then a function to get one single image. There is another one to get the history. This is helpful in order to get intermediate images. Then we have a while loop that's going to constantly look for the execution type, and we can see it here. Basically, the WebSocket, the way it works is that it's a dual communication. ComfyUI will constantly send dates to our application, and the application is just going to check if the message type is executing. It means that the workflow is running, and by basically getting the node, which node we are at, we'll know whether the execution is stopped, or maybe in the case sampler or VAE encode or decode node. Now, once we know that the execution stopped, we are breaking out of it, and then we are checking the history. In the history, we're basically just getting the images. And once we have the images, we can display it in our application. Now, you don't have to worry about all of these code from here to here. This is already written and it's going to work regardless of the server address. Okay, so the only thing that you'll need to change is the server address, and that is inside the settings.py. At the bottom, we have a main, and this is where we are making the connection to the WebSocket and retrieving the images. Now I'm going to change the name of this function from main to get prompt images, and that is because I will be importing this function inside the main.py, and I do not want to have conflict of names, right? And basically this function is doing exactly what the name says. We are going to pass in the prompt and we are going to get back the images. These images are already in the correct format or Gradio to display them. Now, if you're working with a different framework, you may need to do some converting the images into the correct format. Now, back in the main.py, let's import Gradio as gr. Let's create a function. We are going to call this process and we'll do pass. Now, for Gradio to display something, we need an interface. So let's do gr.interface. The interface will take three things: a function inputs, which is going to be a list, and then outputs, that also is a list. So the function is going to be process, and make sure not to call the function here. You just need to pass a reference to the function. And now for the basic application, let's just create a text box. So gr.textbox to create the text box. Let's give it a label. This is going to be a string, so positive, and yeah, that's going to be the positive prompt. Like I said, LCM does not take the negative prompt into consideration. If you're using a different workflow, then you can add another text box for negative prompt. The output. Now, if you're displaying only one image, Gradio has the image component, which is going to display one image. But just in case there's a workflow with multiple images, I'm going to use a gallery. And this also has a label parameter. I'm going to call this outputs. Okay, let's give it this a name. I'm going to say demo. And now I'm going to do demo.queue.
With this method, users will know their position in the queue. And you, as the developer, you will be able to set up a maximum limit to the number of events allowed.
Finally, we need to do demo.launch. That is going to launch the application. All right, at this point, we can test the application. In PyCharm, there is a play button at the top to run the file. Make sure that main is selected, or you can click on this drop down and select current file to start main.py. If you're using a different IDE, then go into the terminal and you will type Python main.py. Press enter, and that's going to run the application. Once you see this running on local URL, you can copy or you can click on it and then go into your browser, paste the link. It will open the application. And we can see we have a positive prompt. We have a text box, we have the output here. Now at this point, the application isn't going to do anything. So let's go back into the Gradio application, into the main.py. And because we are passing this input positive prompt here, our process function will also need to get parameter there. I'm just going to call this parameter as positive, and this is going to be the positive prompt. At the top, we are going to say from WebSockets _ API import, and then we'll say get prompt images. So let's call this. Now this one requires a prompt, and this prompt is basically the API file that we've downloaded, the JSON one. So go into your downloads folder or wherever you've saved it, select the file, copy it, and in PyCharm you can directly paste it inside your project by going into the folder, the root folder, right clicking, and then select paste. It will ask you where you want to paste it. For now, let's just paste it in the project folder. Click on OK. And when you open the basic _workflow.json, you'll see at the top we have a number. This number is the ID of that particular node. So this from here, this dictionary basically until here. So everything here is information pertaining to this particular node, the ID number 3. And from the different options here, we know that this is the key sampler. Now, similarly, if we go down, we will see ID number 6, and that is the positive prompt. So to programmatically modify the positive prompt, we'll need to access number 6, then access inputs, access text, and then modify the text here. This is just a string in Python. So let's go back to the main.py. At the top, we are going to import JSON, and JSON is to work with this JSON file here. Now inside the process, I will do with open, then look for the file. Now the file for me is called basic _workflow.json. Then I want to open it as read mode. And sometimes in certain models name, there may be Chinese or Japanese character. And for that, I will just put the encoding as UTF-8. I will give this a name. So just say as F. And then we are going to use the JSON library at the top. We'll say json.load. We are going to use the second one and pass in F to it. Okay, so we're basically loading this JSON file as a Python dictionary at this point. So let's give this prompt, and we can pass this prompt directly into get images, this function get prompt images is going to return images. So we can say images equals to, and then at the very end of this function, we are going to return images. And I believe when I imported JSON, I accidentally deleted this Gradio line. All right, this should be all for now. So you can see we have the positive prompt, but we're not using it just yet. So to use this positive prompt, we'll have to go back to basic underscore workflow and see the structure. Okay, so like I said before, we are going to access the ID6 inputs, text, and then we can change it. So let's go to main. Now, before we call this function, just after the with open, make sure that you have proper indentation as well. Let's access from. Then we need to access the ID number 6. Then we are going to access inputs and finally text. Then we can put this equals to anything. So we can type in something here. We can say a half portrait of A, and then we concatenate this with the positive prompt. Now this is going to work, but it's the old-fashioned way of doing it. If you're using Python 3.7, you can use what's called as an F string. So at the beginning of the string, type in F and then put a placeholder, type in the placeholder inside. So we basically have the half portrait of a positive prompt, and you can also add other things like highly detailed, high resolution. So let's start or restart the application. If you have the application running, close the terminal and restart the application. I'm going to open ComfyUI here, and images which we are requesting using the WebSocket will not appear in here. But if you open the queue section from the ComfyUI menu, you will be able to see whether we have a queue that is running. So let's go into the Gradio application. I'm going to refresh, and because in my code I've already written the beginning of the prompt and then the ending, all I need to do is to put the subject in here. So this time I'm doing young woman with red hair. Click on submit. You can see at the top processing. Okay, and we got the image. It got displayed right there. The resolution as well is correct. We can download the image from the top here. You can also right click, open the image in a new tab, and if I hover over the icon, you will see that the resolution is 512 by 768. Now, just to show you that we can get intermediate images, let's just put the save node a little bit on far. Once we have the image, I'm going to drag out and then just do an image crop. And I'm just going to do something very silly here. I'm going to crop a portion of the image, but this one, it's not the final image. I'm just making as if we are doing something and we want to debug it. So I'm going to add a preview image here. Because I modified this workflow, I will need to save API format once again. Click on OK, save as. Now, since this one is a test, I'm going to give this a new name, just say _1. After this test, I'm going to delete this one. Okay, add the new workflow to your project. So you can see I have the original one and then the modified version. And this modified version, if I open it and if you go down, you will see that we have the preview node in here. The ID is number 12, because this process function is always going to open the workflow from here. If the workflow has the same name, it will get the latest version. Now in my case, because I've added _1, I will need to modify this file by adding _1 here and then restart my Gradio application. Once it's restarted, I can use the same thing. I'm just going to click on submit, and you can see now we have two images. So this is the full resolution one, and then we have a crop version. I'm going to change this back to basic and delete that test. Now at this point, this is your basic application. It's doing pretty much everything that you need. It is pretty much similar to ChatGPT or image creator from Bing or Microsoft. However, note one thing here. I'm going to go back, restart the Gradio application. Once it's restarted, I will keep the same positive prompt, click on submit, and you see I get the same image. If I click on submit again, I get the same image. And that is because the seed number inside of ComfyUI is not changing. right? In ComfyUI, we have this control before generation, and we can change this. We can change it to randomize, increment, decrement. When we click on the Q prompt here, it will automatically change the seed and we'll get a new image, even though the positive prompt is the same. In our application, the seed number is fixed inside this case sampler node. Now, if you don't want this, you can go into the main.py, and then similar to how we've changed the positive prompt, we can change the seed number. So let's go into the basic workflow. We know that we need to access the ID number 3, then access inputs, and then seed. So let's do this. Okay, so I'm accessing number 3, ID number 3, inputs, seed. Sure, these are exactly the name that you see here. These are case sensitive. Now I'm going to simulate the randomize option. For that, I will need to import random. Then I will do random.run in and just pass in a big number here. Every time we click on this Q prompt, it will automatically change and randomize the seed number. So even if the positive prompt is the same, we'll get a different image. So let's restart the application, and we need to restart the application every time we make a change to the process function, or if we add or remove any of the component inside the interface. Okay, so let's do another test. So we have this positive prompt, click on submit, and now you can see that it's taking longer, and that is because ComfyUI is generating the image. We have a new seed now. Okay, so we got a new image here.
Congratulations. You now have a basic web application. In the next section, we are going to take it up a level and make an intermediate version. Thank you for watching until the very end. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, subscribe so that you do not miss the next video. And if you have the means, you can join my Patreon and support the channel. But hey, you can also become a free member. I have a join for free button as well. With that, take care. I will see you in the next one.